My wife let her parents trash my family during our wedding. So I walked out and never looked back. I always thought the worst thing that could happen at your wedding was bad weather or the best man giving a speech that runs too long. But me? I got dragged through the mud by my in-laws in front of over 100 people, and my bride just stood there like I was nothing more than a coat left on a chair. Let me start from the beginning. The calm before the wreck. Claire and I had been together for 5 years. Met at a conference when I was still grinding 70-hour weeks as a financial analyst. She was this spark, smart, quick with sarcasm, and just soft enough around the edges to keep a guy like me from falling off the rails completely. When I told her I wanted to leave finance to pursue animation full-time, she actually supported it. At least, that's what I thought. She even showed off my early work, little animated clips and short stories to her coworkers and friends. Made me feel like someone who could matter outside of a suit and tie. We moved in together, got engaged. Life felt like it was clicking. But the thing about marrying someone is, you don't just marry them. You marry their family. And I should have seen the signs. Enter Andy and Susan Foster from day one. Her parents hated me. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. Andy, buttoned-up former Air Force, ran a local logistics company like he still barked orders in formation. Susan, the queen of backhanded compliments. She once looked at me during brunch and said, "It's so brave of you to pursue something creative at your age." I was 29, but I gritted my teeth. Claire said they were just tough at first, that they'd warm up. I believed her because I wanted to believe in us. They never warmed up. The wedding day massacre, it was supposed to be our day. Small venue in Portland. Close friends. Family. A mix of quirky and elegant, just like Claire wanted. I paid for nearly everything. Not because her parents couldn't, but because I didn't want their money buying control. That was my first mistake. Right after the ceremony, we sat down for toasts. Mike, Claire's brother-in-law, gave a decent one. Bit long, but harmless. Then came Andy. He stood up, wine glass in hand, and opened with, "Well, I gotta admit, when Claire told us she was marrying an artist, I figured it was a phase. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't." Susan laughed loud, sharp. A few people did that awkward, "Is this real?" laugh. Andy kept going. But then I realized Nathan here is serious about drawing cartoons for a living. So, hey, maybe we'll get a Pixar check someday, right? I felt my face flush. I looked at Claire. She was smiling, nervously, but she didn't say a word. Then Susan took the mic. "I just want to say how proud we are of Claire. She's always had such drive. Even as a kid, she was the one planning, organizing, succeeding. And now she's marrying a man who, well, follows his heart, even if his heart doesn't always pay the bills." And that was it. My mom, sitting in the front row, looked like someone had slapped her with a fish. My dad? Stone silent. Claire still said nothing. Not a damn word. The walkout when the speeches were over, I stood up. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. I walked right past the dance floor, through the side door, into the parking lot. I heard Claire call my name once, but I didn't stop. That was the last time I ever wore that suit. People say weddings are about starting a new chapter. Mine was the closing credits. Because in that moment, as I walked into the Portland drizzle, tux loose and tie undone, I realized something brutal. Claire didn't marry me to build a life with me. She married me to check a box, to look the part. And when her family used that moment to tear me down, she stayed quiet. And that silence? It said everything. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages from her sisters, from her mom acting like nothing happened. But the only message I read twice was from Mike, her brother-in-law. It just said, "You were right to walk away." The morning after the wedding, I woke up on my buddy Jordan's couch with a killer headache and the taste of regret stuck in my mouth. Not because I walked out, but because I waited so long to do it. Claire had called 9 times. 9. Texted 24. Her mom? 2 voicemails. One cheerful, like nothing happened. The second more clipped. I didn't bother responding. Not yet. I needed space. I needed to breathe air that wasn't soaked in shame and rose petals. But life and Claire's family didn't want to give me that space. The damage control begins by noon. I had messages from her sister Hannah. "Hannah, hey, can we talk? That was wild last night. But, like, emotions were high. We should fix this." Fix this? They humiliate me and my family at the wedding I paid for, and now I'm supposed to just hit rewind? Then Claire sent a message that nearly made me drop my phone. "Claire, let's talk over dinner. Just us. I'll explain everything. No apology. No acknowledgement of what her parents said. Just explain." Like her standing there, watching them humiliate me, had some secret, noble context I'd missed. The dinner that sealed it, I met her at a diner downtown. Not fancy, quiet, neutral territory. She looked tired, dark circles, hair pulled back like she hadn't had time to wash it. But I didn't start soft. I want to hear you say it, I said, before we'd even ordered. She blinked. Say what? That what they did was disgusting. That what you didn't do, that silence, was just as bad. She exhaled slow. I didn't know they were going to say that. That's not the question. She looked down. I'm sorry, she said finally. I should have said something. I was in shock. I waited. And I pushed. And I was scared of making it worse. That hit me. So you let them trash me. Trash my family. Because making a scene would have been worse than that. She nodded, barely. I didn't know how to fight them, she whispered. I never have. That was the first time she ever admitted it. And it broke something in me. The family pyramid. That was the moment I realized Claire had been raised in a house with only one rule. You never go against the pack. Her parents weren't just domineering. They were political. Every gift, every compliment, every offer to help came with strings. The expensive birthday dinners. The down payment they offered to cover, which I declined. Even paying for Hannah's baby shower, all with a ledger in their minds. And if you ever called it out, you were the problem. Claire grew up marinated in that. And the only way to survive was to keep quiet, to stay pleasant, grateful, easy to manage. And now she'd married someone who didn't play by those rules. Someone who spoke up. Someone who had no intention of keeping the peace when dignity was on the line. She didn't know what to do with that. So she froze. And I paid the price. You could still come back. After dinner, she tried one more thing. Look, she said, if you want, we can do a second ceremony. Just us. Small. Or no ceremony. We can just start over. Forget all that. Forget all that. Forget the speech. Forget my mom crying in the parking lot. Forget my dad, the quietest man on earth, putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, you don't owe them a damn thing, son. Forget that humiliation? No. Meanwhile, the Fosters were scrambling. Turns out, when the groom walks out mid-wedding, people talk. Claire's uncle apparently called Andy a jackass at brunch the next morning. Susan tried spinning it like I had cold feet, but a few of my friends uploaded clips from the speech online. It didn't go viral, but it made the rounds in our circle. People saw. People knew. And Andy? The proud ex-military man? Couldn't stand that. So what did he do? He sent me a letter. A letter. Typed. Signed. Formal. In it, he wrote, I hope you come to your senses and realize this tantrum has cost you a wonderful woman. I pinned it to my fridge for a week. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Because that sentence, that letter, was the purest window into their mindset. To them, I was the problem. Not what they said. Not how they treated me. But that I refused to swallow it. Sometimes, people don't need to lie to you. They just need to be themselves long enough, and you'll see everything. Claire wasn't evil. She wasn't malicious. She was conditioned. And now I had to ask myself, do I want to spend the next 10 years dragging someone out of a toxic fog they're too afraid to name? Because love? Love isn't supposed to be a rescue mission. 2 days later, I got a text from Mike, Hannah's husband. Mike, can I buy you a beer? I think I'm starting to see what you saw. I didn't know what he meant yet, but I had a feeling. The cracks were spreading. We met at a bar on the east side of Portland. Mike was already 2 beers in, nursing a third like it might give him the courage to keep talking. The guy looked rough. Wrinkled shirt. Eyes bagged like he hadn't slept. And for the first time since I met him, he looked like he didn't have the answers, just a whole lot of questions he'd been too afraid to ask. He slid a beer across to me and said, you were right, man. I just didn't want to believe it. The conversation that changed everything. I took a sip. Waited. He exhaled. It's been going on for years. The manipulation. The guilt trips. The quiet little games Susan plays, and Andy backing her up like a general enforcing the rules. Rules? I asked. Unspoken ones, he said. Like, if you don't bring gifts to their house on holidays, they talk about you behind your back. If you don't offer to cover dinner, they call you ungrateful. If you don't follow the script, they freeze you out. I nodded. They tried to do that with me too. I just didn't stick around long enough to let it work. He looked down at his glass. They got to Hannah bad. Like, real bad. I found out she's been sending them money. Not just occasionally. Monthly. Hundreds. For years. I blinked. Wait. What? He nodded. They told her it was for helping out Claire when she was in grad school. But Claire's tuition was covered by a scholarship. I checked. My stomach dropped. What were they really doing with the money? Mike shrugged. I don't know. Susan says it's family expenses, but every time I press, Hannah clams up. Then he leaned in. But get this. I looked at our bank statements. There's a withdrawal every first of the month. Same amount. Same memo. Just one word. Support. Like child support? Exactly. Except we don't have kids. I stared at him. He looked ashamed. I confronted Hannah. She got defensive. Said I was being disrespectful. Said, you wouldn't understand. You didn't grow up in this family. Oh, I understood. More than he knew. The cult mentality, that's what it was. A loyalty cult disguised as a family. Andy and Susan had turned their kids into foot soldiers. Everything was about control. Everything was about image. They didn't raise daughters. They raised loyalists. And now I was talking to a man who realized he married into that system just like I did. But unlike me, he didn't walk away in time. The ass, then Mike said it. I need out. I blinked. Out. Out of the marriage. Out of the family. Out of the lies. But I don't know how. I've got a business. A mortgage. We've got stuff tied up. I can't just bounce. I nodded slowly. And you want my help? He looked me dead in the eye. You already did the hardest part. You walked. I need to know how you did it without losing your mind. I took a deep breath. And I told him everything. How I started documenting everything: texts, emails, passive-aggressive voice notes from Susan. How I quietly rerouted my mail and opened a separate bank account 6 months before the wedding. How I had a rental lined up before I even proposed, just in case. He listened, jaw tightening with each word. Then he said, I've got a folder. Everything. The payments. The texts. Even a voicemail from Susan telling Hannah she better keep her man in line. You think that'll help me in court? I smirked. Oh, it's going to do more than that. Meanwhile, back at the house of Foster, word got out. Susan found out Mike had met with me. Claire texted me that night, frantic. Claire, what are you doing? Why are you dragging Mike into this? Me, I didn't drag him. He walked in. I just opened the door. She didn't reply. But I knew what she was thinking. The walls were closing in. And for the first time, the golden image her parents had built, the tight-knit, perfect foster family, was cracking. Fast. The next day, I got an email. From Dan. Yeah, that Dan. Claire's other brother-in-law. Subject line, you were right. It was short. I lost my job 3 months ago. Asked Andy and Susan for a little help until I got back on my feet. They said no. Said I wasn't pulling my weight and should be ashamed. My wife agreed with them. I'm sleeping at my cousin's now. You're not the crazy one. 3 sons-in-law. 3 crash landings. And not a single foster daughter standing by her husband when things got hard. What does that tell you? Sometimes, the most dangerous place to be is inside someone else's narrative. Andy and Susan created a world where they were always right. Always noble. Always generous. And the people around them? Just characters to be moved around as needed. But eventually, even the best scripts fall apart when the actors stop following their lines. That's what was happening now. The sons-in-law were walking off the stage. And the foster show was headed for cancellation. Mike texted me again. Mike, I told Hannah I want a separation. She called Susan. 10 minutes later, Susan showed up at our door with a folder and said, if you try to leave, we'll ruin you. He ended with, you ever seen your wife turn into someone you don't recognize? Yeah, Mike. I have. And I think we're just getting started. I never planned to get involved in anyone else's marriage. Hell, I barely made it out of my own without emotional frostbite. But when Mike told me Susan showed up with threats in a folder, something in me snapped. Because I knew that folder wasn't just paper. It was a weapon. Mike's breaking point, we met up the next morning at a quiet park. Just the two of us on a bench, pretending the sky wasn't falling. I looked through the folder, Mike said. It was full of receipts. Things I bought. Vacations we took. All labeled, her expense, like she was building a case to make me look like a freeloader. I stared at him. She's preparing to divorce you like it's a business transaction. He nodded. And Hannah's backing her. Said I owe her family for how much they've done for us. Done for you. I laughed. You mean manipulating, demanding, and making you pay tribute every month like a mafia tax? Mike didn't even smile. Just stared off into the trees. She said if I leave, Susan's going to send the folder to my investors. Try to tank my startup. That's when I knew this wasn't family anymore. This was war. The plan. I need leverage, Mike said. I nodded. Then we get it. Over the next week, we built a file. Text messages from Hannah confirming the monthly payments. Emails from Susan making thinly veiled threats. Even photos of Andy holding a family meeting where the only agenda was bad-mouthing the men who tried to leave. Then we reached out to Dan. At first, he didn't respond. Then one night, out of nowhere, he called. I'll help, he said, but only if I stay anonymous. They can't know I talked to you. That was fine with us. Dan gave us the motherlode. Bank transfers from his account to Susan's, back when he was married. Voice recordings of conversations where she demanded he take out loans in his name. Even one where she says, "You signed up for us, not just my daughter." Us. Not her. Us. Like marrying a foster meant joining a corporation. Meanwhile, Claire reappears. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. Claire showed up at my new place. I opened the door, and there she was, rain-soaked, holding an envelope. "Can we talk?" she asked. I should have said no, but I let her in. She sat at the table, same nervous fingers twisting her ring, the one she still wore, even though we hadn't spoken in weeks. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. "I came to say I'm sorry. For real this time." I leaned back, said nothing. She placed the envelope on the table. "I talked to a lawyer," she said. "If you want an annulment, I'll sign it. No contest. No property. No drama." I stared at her. "Why now?" She looked tired. Older. Like 1,000 regrets were weighing on her spine. "Because I saw what they're doing to Mike," she said. "And for the first time, I realized that's what they did to you. And I let it happen." That hit harder than I wanted to admit. She stood. "One more thing," she said. "Susan's been tracking your moves. She has a friend in real estate who's been feeding her info. Be careful." Then she left. And the room felt colder than before. You don't always get the closure you want. Sometimes you get something sharper, the truth. And truth cuts cleaner than any lie ever could. Claire's apology didn't erase what happened. But it did one thing I didn't expect. It shifted the target. Because now, Susan knew she was losing control, not just of me, or Mike, or Dan, but of Claire. And that made her dangerous. Mike sent me a screenshot that night. It was a message from Susan to Hannah. "Susan, it's time we ruin him before he ruins us." The next morning, someone broke into Mike's car. But they didn't take anything. They just left a note. One word. "Traitor." You ever feel like someone's watching you? Not paranoia. Not nerves. Real, primal danger crawling up your spine. That's how the week felt after Susan left that note in Mike's car. Yeah, Susan. We had no proof she did it herself. But come on. It's always the puppet master who never gets her hands dirty but pulls every string. Mike filed a police report. Nothing came of it. Of course it didn't. But it sent a message. One none of us missed. The trap we didn't see coming. Mike went quiet for a couple of days. Said he needed time. Said he was laying low. I thought maybe he was just scared. Turns out, he wasn't scared. He was preparing. He called me late Thursday night. Voice low, urgent. I recorded them. My heart stopped. Who? Hannah. Susan. Even Andy. How? Security cam in the hallway. After Susan broke into our house. She what? Yeah. Used the spare key. Said she was checking on Hannah. I installed a cam above the coat rack the next day. Then he dropped it. I got Susan saying, word for word, "Make sure he feels like garbage, Hannah. We want him to leave so we can claim abandonment." I just stared at the wall for a second. This wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was calculated destruction, legal manipulation, a setup, and we had it on tape. We sent it to everyone. We didn't go to the police, not yet. We went to someone worse, Claire. And Mike sent it to Dan too. You could hear Susan's voice clear as day, her smug confidence, her orders, her daughter following them. By the next morning, Claire texted me, "Claire, I'm sorry. I didn't believe it until now." Then another, "Claire, she's done this before. To other people. My cousin. My aunt. She made them all look crazy." And from Dan, "Holy hell. I'm sending this to my lawyer." It was like we cracked open a dam. And the flood was coming. The last dinner, then Claire asked me to meet her. Said her dad, Andy, wanted to apologize. Yeah, that Andy. I almost didn't go. But curiosity is a powerful thing. We met at a mid-range steakhouse near the river. Claire, Andy, and me. Susan didn't come. Of course not. Andy looked like a man being forced to apologize in a hostage video. "I let things get out of hand," he said. I stayed silent. I didn't stop Susan. I let her run things. And I see now that maybe we were too harsh. Harsh, I said. You humiliated me. You let your wife mock my career, my family, my character. And you called that a speech. Claire touched his arm, gently. He cleared his throat. "I'm sorry." It sounded forced, like it was pulled out of him with pliers. Then he added something that made my skin crawl. "I'd rather mend this now than have my name dragged through court." Oh, there it was. Not remorse. Fear. Fear of what was coming. The twist that night, I got a call from Mike. "You're not going to like this," he said. "What?" "They offered me a deal." I sat up. "Who did?" "Hannah. Through her lawyer. She said if I sign a clean break agreement, they'll stop everything. No defamation. No revenge. No digging into my company." My jaw clenched. "What did you say?" I told them I'd think about it. "Think about it?" He sighed. "Man, I've got everything riding on my startup. I can't afford to lose investors. Not over principle. Mike, I'm not saying I'll take it. I'm just saying I might not have a choice. That was the moment I realized. Not everyone has the luxury of burning bridges. Some people are still stuck on the bridge when the fire starts. You ever realize a fight you thought was about dignity is really about survival? That's what this became. For me, walking away was about respect, about not letting anyone reduce me. But for Mike, it was about keeping his life from crumbling. And the Fosters knew that. They knew how to hit people where it hurts, slowly, quietly, legally. I woke up the next morning to a message from Claire. Claire, Mike took the deal. And just like that, we lost one. But the war? It wasn't over yet. After Mike took the deal, it felt like the wind went out of our sails. I couldn't blame him. He had too much to lose. But still it stung. Because they got away with it again. Susan played the game and won. Or so she thought. Because what she didn't realize was, the recordings still existed. And Dan wasn't as quiet as she assumed. Dan, bless his quiet, calculating heart, sent the clips to a friend of his who ran a niche legal blog focused on high-profile domestic cases. He didn't name names. But he didn't have to. The blog went viral within hours. Reddit threads, TikToks, even one of those anonymous gossip channels picked it up. Suddenly, Susan Foster wasn't a matriarch. She was a meme. The clip of her saying, "Make sure he feels like garbage," was stitched over cooking videos, dance trends, and reaction content. She became internet infamous, and she couldn't control a damn second of it. Claire called me the next day. "They're blaming me," she said. "They think I leaked it." "Did you?" "No," she said. "But I wish I had." That surprised me. "Why?" "Because I'm tired, Nathan," she said. "Tired of pretending this is normal. Tired of defending people who wouldn't even defend me if I needed them to." She paused, voice shaking. "I filed for divorce. From the family." I smiled. "You can't divorce your family." "I can," she said. "Emotionally. Legally. I'm changing my name. Selling the condo. Moving across the state." Then she said something I didn't expect. "I want to try again. With you." I didn't answer right away. Because even though part of me still loved her, another part remembered the silence. The silence at the wedding. The silence after the humiliation. The silence that almost broke me. "I believe you mean it," I said finally. "But I don't think I'm the person you need right now." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "Thank you for being honest." That was the real goodbye. No fireworks. No closure speech. Just two people finally telling the truth. Sometimes, walking away is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Not because you don't care, but because you do, and they never did. The Foster family? They imploded the moment control slipped through their fingers. Susan faded from the spotlight. Andy stopped showing his face in public. Claire started over. And me? I'm not bitter. I'm better. I've got my name, my peace, and my voice, and I plan on using all three. Because when people ask, "Why didn't you just forgive them?" I say this: forgiveness without accountability is just permission for the abuse to happen again.